Welcome to this week's podcast. We are moving through menopause. And this
Yay.
morning I'm joined by Shirley Ward. Shirley is a registered nutritionist, and I'm really excited to have this conversation because I am a food fanatic, a real food fanatic, I should probably say. So, welcome, Shirley. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you, Philippa. No, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome. It's great to get together and talk about these topics because menopause can be brushed under the carpet. It can be the poor relation, and although because we are talking about it a lot, we think that's all that people are thinking about. Actually, that is not the reality. This is still a topic that is somewhat taboo. And so, you and I have our experiences of menopause. So would you care to share a little bit about your own experiences?
Yes, of course. Yeah, God, sort of 6 years on from that, it's been quite interesting reflecting back on that actually. So before we did this session, and I found it really interesting. So I say in a way I was lucky, but actually I'll temper that in a minute, because I just went cold turkey, for want of a better word, and my periods just stopped. And that was the case. I'd always been pretty regular, then they just stopped. And then after that, I was thinking, a few months after, thinking, well, actually, doing all right, actually, what's all this fuss about? And then I started to get hot flashes in the day and night sweats. And I was really, really busy at the time. I mean, I generally am pretty busy work-wise, but I was doing a lot of work with Nuffield Health. I was doing a lot of their corporate workshops and talks on corporate client sites, and I became quite self-conscious actually, thinking, oh my God, I wonder if people can see me. And generally, a lot of the time, actually, people don't even notice, but it makes you very self-conscious. So I thought, right, I really need to look into this and find out more, why and how I can help myself, really. Hence my sort of delving more into the menopause area. And I'd started to see clients who were having menopausal issues. And you're right, a lot of women were not aware of the changes and why things happen, and importantly, what they can do to help themselves. So that's what got me interested in this area, and I've been delving into this area ever since and helping my clients.
Yeah, and I think that is the case for lots of us, who are flying the flag for menopause. That it's our journey that influences our thirst, if you like, for this topic, this information around this topic. And I think that's a shame, really, because for us to have been a bit more prepared probably would have been a good thing. And anyway, so we can't go back. There's no going back. We can only go forwards. But interestingly, my experience was very different, in as much as I had symptoms for about 5 years before my period stopped. And so totally the antithesis of your experience, actually. And so and like a gradual creeping up on you sort of thing, with things happening incrementally. But lots of symptoms. I experienced lots of the 34 symptoms that I might have experienced. I did experience quite a lot of them, I have to say. And so that really started me on my journey of exploration and realizing, like once you start to tread on that path, you come across people who you realize are on that same path, and yet they haven't yet come to that realization themselves.
They don't know it.
Yeah. So then it's interesting. It's a bit like buying a new car and all of a sudden you see them all over the roads when you never spotted them before. It's
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
And interestingly, I was talking to a beauty therapist, and she sort of said around the time of menopause or thereafter, she was suddenly fascinated by electrolysis. She said, as a younger therapist, she was never going to care less about electrolysis, and then all of a sudden, so it does speak to that, that there are ages and stages, and that our life experiences invariably influence the things that we're doing, the things that we're interested in. But I am really aware that, like, there are people who do, like you, stop the periods and have no symptoms at all. I think that is entirely possible, and yet the ramifications of this decline in estrogen is still occurring. And then, of course, the other piece of the puzzle is that there are people who are experiencing these symptoms who are not talking about it and suffering in silence. And so to talk about the effects of declining levels of estrogen, I know this is something that you're very well versed in, Shirley. So
okay, yeah, absolutely. And see it a lot. So yeah, I mean, if we look at sort of a natural normal cycle, sort of 5-7 years pre-menopause, your hormones are actually going to be a lot of levels are going to be starting to decrease, but actually estrogen reduces by about 40% once you've reached menopause. So it's not quite as dramatic as a lot of people think, and not quite as it doesn't go quite as low, because as long as you're able to keep your adrenal glands working effectively, they, and to a certain extent some fat cells, they can actually produce, they can be production sites for estrogen. So that's the good news. Unfortunately, I see with a lot of my clients that actually their adrenal health isn't that great. And I think a big factor is, once we're moving in towards menopause, it can create a lot of stress for women, and actually not just women, for their partners and close, friends and relatives too. And it's a real source of stress. Going back to what I was saying about, I started having these hot flushes while I was doing my presentations, and I was thinking, oh my God, you just get a bit anxious, and also the foggy brain is a quite common symptom that I hear from my clients. Where's my memory gone? I can't remember things. And that's another sign. I mean, estrogen is a very powerful hormone in the body, and it's a real modulator of so many different systems, and so that's why it can have such wide-ranging effects. So therefore, one of the first areas that we could look at is adrenal support. Let's try and support those adrenal glands to support our ongoing estrogen production, to help to try and keep things more balanced. So, we can certainly look into, certain foods that can help to keep adrenal health good. So your adrenals are producing, you probably know of the adrenals as your stress production sites, basically. So they produce a whole range of steroid hormones. Common ones are adrenaline and cortisol, which are our stress hormones. So they're producing that fight or flight response when we start to feel a bit anxious, a bit stressed, getting into stressful situations. And the problem with high adrenaline levels is it's also going to shoot up your insulin hormone levels as well. So when adrenaline levels increase, when you're feeling stressed or anxious, you need a lot of energy to produce that fight or flight response, and so your blood glucose levels are spiking as well. So adrenaline is increasing energy levels in the body. It's diverting energy from other areas and spiking your blood sugar levels to give you that energy. And you might think, well, actually, that's good. I need actually more energy. I've been feeling tired all the time, so that could work for me. But actually, it's not sustainable energy. So that's and when that energy has been used up, which generally we don't actually use it up, we're not going to run or fight. We're just going to carry on and doing that presentation. We're not going to suddenly run from the presentation, are we? So that energy is then stored for future energy reserves, and a lot of the time that is stored around your middle. And that's another classic symptom that a lot of clients come to me about, saying, oh my goodness, since I've gone into menopause, or I'm getting into menopause, I can't shift this weight. I'm doing loads of exercise, can't shift this weight. And it's an interesting one, that hormonal shift, because your body's trying to be clever, actually. It's trying to protect you by storing more fat around the middle, because your liver is located in your in that area, in your middle, and your liver is responsible for releasing, storing glucose. It stores as glycogen. It releases it when the body is telling it, right, I need more energy. Release that glucose. And so your body's thinking, right, if I store it near to the liver, I'm being really efficient here. Hence, gaining weight around the middle. So we've digressed a little bit, but there are a few areas that are very much interlinked with hormone levels reducing, especially estrogen, and all those hormones are so linked in with each other, we cannot separate them.
That's right, because the building blocks are the same, essentially.
With a lot of them, absolutely.
Of them,
precursors can be the same for a number of different hormones.
And so cortisol steals from estrogen.
It can do. It's a little bit kind of more in depth, so I'm going to sort of steer away from that, because I just want to sort of keep this sort of quite light now. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, balancing your cortisol levels, trying to keep your cortisol levels balanced, is a really good way of overall hormonal balance, of helping to get to that term homeostasis, of that balance of all your systems working in balance with each other, which is when we're moving towards sort of more optimal health, is sort of what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, well, absolutely. The homeostasis is something your body is constantly aiming for.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things in our lives that will work against us in that regard. And, not least of all, the fact that the decrease in estrogen levels is affecting neurogenesis in the brain. So the ability of our neurons to be synthesized and generated in a very similar fashion to bone cells, actually. And that kind of helped me to understand it, that we have this constant turnover of cells, and in skin, we're more familiar with that whole concept, but the same thing is happening in bone and also in the brain. The osteoblastic in the bone, and then the neuroblastic activity in the brain. So, brain fog is a very real physiological effect of menopause. It isn't just that we're all of a sudden we're all emotional and we can't remember stuff. There's a very real physiology behind this. Similarly with mood, the sort of disturbances of mood and memory. So these are very real physiological changes that are going on, and actually anxiety is the other thing that we can have as a consequence of that. So, but it can become a bit of a self-perpetuating cycle of anxiety and worry and cortisol, and this whole cycle
get worse. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really about the kinds of things that we can do to intervene. And clearly you're a nutritionist, and I'm a movement specialist. So my MO is movement, but for you, of course, your modus operandi is to help us with food. And so, have you got some suggestions of the kinds of things that might benefit us in terms of nutrition?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, clearly you do.
Yes, I can start with a few pointers, definitely. So, well, we've just been talking about hormonal imbalance and the big role that the adrenals play in that as well. So, if we can look at reducing factors that move us towards anxiety, which obviously is a symptom of stress, and move us away from that stress process, and that's a really big help to the body. So with stress, a lot of external stresses, relationship, money issues, work issues, etc., we can't always be in control of those, so we can't always manage those as much as we would like. So actually, let's look at some what we call internal stressors, which we can be much more in control of. And these are certain foods that can actually create effectively that same process that the stress process causes. So there's spike in adrenaline, spike in insulin. So, foods that are very fiber deficient, foods that are very sugary, very sweet, and, meals that are lacking protein. So if we look at those first, fiber deficient foods, I call them the white foods, like your white pasta, white bread, white flour products, sugary foods, sugary drinks. They are, they've had all their natural fiber removed, and they're very carb heavy, these kind of foods. And so they've got lots of energy contained in them, but it's mainly just pure energy. And the food processing has actually removed most of the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals they would contain naturally as well. So say you're having some white pasta with some tomato sauce for lunch, for example, just as an example. So that white pasta is going to be digested, broken down, releasing that energy really quickly into your bloodstream. And pre-lunch you might think, oh God, I'm really hungry, I need some energy. And you get that after that pasta, you get that initial energy lift. And you think, oh great, I feel really good now. But actually about 20 minutes later, you could feel, oh crikey, I could have an afternoon sleep, or I just feel hungry again. What's going on? So that quick release energy into your bloodstream has been sent round to all your cells for physical energy. It's also been sent to your brain for mental energy as well. Your brain uses about 60% of the glucose we obtain from carbohydrate source foods. And that's sent around there really quickly because there's no fiber element that would normally slow down the release and into a sustainable form of energy. And so that excess energy, say you're in a desk-based job, you've had your pasta for lunch, you're tapping at your computer, you haven't used up that mental and physical energy. So excess is going to be stored quite quickly as fat for future energy reserve. You get this energy dip. So hence mid-afternoon cravings, for example. I'm sure that sounds quite familiar to a lot of you. So that's where that can come in. And that cycle can continue. You could have, a coffee or a biscuit to try and pick your energy levels up, and then you're going to get caught in that cycle again. So going down a better route of choosing energy foods, but with that fiber content, rather than going for white pasta with tomato sauce for lunch, for example, you could go for brown rice. If you're a fish eater, you could add some mackerel in there, some smoked mackerel, or if you're a vegetarian, you could have some feta cheese, or a vegan, you could have some quinoa with some butter beans and some salad all mixed in, because they're adding fiber. But we're also adding protein in there as well. And protein is going to slow down the release of that quick release energy, because protein is digested much slower in the body. And protein we need to build hormones. So protein is helping us for hormone balance, sorry. So just some ideas there.
Yeah, that's, I mean, and so much of this is just generally good advice. In terms of weight management, managing the blood sugar balance, invariably, stress, it's a contributory factor, and actually just general health, in terms of our heart health, our and the gut microbiome, needs lots of lovely fiber, doesn't it? So
absolutely does, yeah.
So this is the kind of thing that really, for me, it has wide-reaching ramifications in terms of not just our hormonal health, but our general health. And so for me, that's just a win-win, really.
It really is. And you mentioned gut health there, Philippa. I mean, again, I focus a lot on digestive health with what I do, and it's a real passion of mine. And being basic, if you can achieve good gut health, then hey, your health is going to move towards that optimal level. Absolutely. It's so important, and I see so many clients with digestive issues, and we work on their digestive health, particularly their gut health, get that in a better shape, because 70% of our immune system are produced by our microbiome in the gut. So if we've got a strong immune system, especially with the pandemic going on, then we are in a much better shape to protect ourselves overall, and not just, obviously focusing on menopause, but that's an absolute added benefit. We've got vitamin D receptors in the gut. And vitamin D, I mean, it's called a vitamin, it's actually a hormone. It's got a lot of controlling effects in the body. Low vitamin D levels are associated with low mood, are associated with bone issues. Vitamin D, key cofactor for strong bones, and for the immune system. The list goes on. There's so much research going on into vitamin D. And how can we help ourselves with that vitamin D? Well, by improving our gut health, eating or consuming fermented foods, which can help their prebiotic and help to feed our probiotic beneficial gut microbiome. Things like sauerkraut. If you know of sauerkraut, making it yourself. I'm going to be doing a video on how to make sauerkraut. I love it. We eat it a lot here. So it's just an easy, cheap, and really easy way of producing a fermented food that you can help your gut health with.
Well, Shirley, I'm definitely going to be watching that video, because my insides have been playing me like a fiddle since this menopause came along. Oh my gosh, honestly, I'm not going to bore everybody with the ins and outs of my insides. But yeah, I mean, this is not something that gets better with age, is it? It's got, stomach acid levels are declining. Our general ability to, well, that's the other thing, our absorption is not quite as it was. And so optimizing digestion, thereby we optimize the nutrients that are entering the bloodstream. And so it is like, it is so important, as you said. And then the link between the gut and the brain, that gut brain, that's so
just cannot sever it. No, absolutely. No, it's a really interesting one, and it's just, I've just done so much research into it, and the cells in the gut are very similar to the cells in the brain when we are being created in the fetus. They are very similar. So obviously they don't think and feel in the same way that the brain does, but there's a lot of synergy there, definitely. And so, hence that brain link. If your gut's not doing well, your brain's not going to be doing well either. So by improving your gut health, win-win from a brain health point of view as well. And while we're on that topic, going back to what we're talking about with blood sugar balance, and how certain foods and stress process can shoot those blood sugar levels up. And I think I mentioned earlier that the brain uses 60% of the glucose we get from our energy foods. As we age, yes, absolutely, the integrity of our internal skin, if you like, is reducing, which means that the blood-brain barrier, which helps to balance glucose going into the brain in a sustainable form for mental energy, can become compromised as well. And so therefore too much glucose is getting into the brain. That blood-brain barrier becomes compromised, and that can lead to a whole host of mental health issues as well, if unaddressed. It's a really interesting link, actually, really interesting.
Well, that does sound fascinating, because honestly, Shirley, over the last number of years, I have been following whole food, nutritious principles, just because, I think I might have mentioned before, my son, when he was 1 year old, had cancer. And so it just happened that, I was so racking my brains with what on earth can I do to help this child be healthy. Look, he had treatments, and we were very fortunate. The NHS saved his life, and he's now a healthy nearly 21 year old. You know, but at that time you just are so racking your brains, what on earth can I do? And the only thing that I could come up with was, you know, you are what you eat. And
Right.
so we went 100% organic, and you know, trying as much as possible to eat single ingredient foods, lots of whole everything. You know, and over the years that's been tempered clearly as time passes, and a bit more kind of the 80-20 rule comes into play, which is, well, what you do the bulk of the time is what makes the difference. So the 80-20 rule is in business. What you do, you know, the thing that you do for 80% of the time, that's the thing that makes all the difference. And so you can have occasional, you know, when you maybe fall off the wagon on occasion, and that's fine. But yeah, I found that I'm totally sensitized to anything with sugar in. And I actually almost feel it go to my brain. And I mean, maybe I am crazy, but honestly, it's like literally, you know, it hits your stomach, and before you know it, it's totally messing
Yeah.
with your mind.
Yeah.
You know, and this is so important just now, isn't it? With the state of the nation, mental health issues, you know, it's on the rise, and absolutely understandably, so many people are struggling on lots of different fronts. Not menopause, you know, pales into insignificance potentially at that point, but you know, these principles apply, which is that we're nourishing our bodies, we're nourishing our minds, and we are invariably helping with our own mental wellness state.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No, we definitely are. And, you know, I see it a lot with a lot of clients that come to me, and, you know, that's not one of the initially, it's one of the reasons they come to see me about, but obviously the way I work is very holistic. I look at all areas, and I'm not, you know, I don't just hone in on why they've come to see me. You've got to peel back the layers and understand what's happened, what's gone on in your previous life, what's actually got you to where you are today. And actually, it's very much the case with menopausal issues as well. You know, I'm going right back to, you know, pre-30s and into, you know, childhood, teenage years, etc. What's going on? Because it's, you know, it's this build up of factors that get you to where you are today. And unless you do that, unless you're thorough in doing that, you're not going to be effective at actually, you know, helping your client take back control, as I'm sure you find as well, though, Philip, with what you do. It's
absolutely, the history taking is just the most important thing we can do. And you know, the brain, it does come down to the brain a lot of times. Our values, our beliefs, our habits, our subconscious systems, how they're acting, you know, in our lives. The things that we do that we don't even know that we do, you know. And so getting to know ourselves, and this is a great opportunity, isn't it, as well? You know, menopause is a time of reflection, as you just mentioned, and actually that could be a good thing. It could be good that we take a moment for ourselves to evaluate, you know, where are we going, who are we, what is it all about? This is not a bad thing. So you're quite right, we both work in a holistic way. It's just that movement is my focus, and nutrition is yours. But you know what? This is a match made in heaven, is it not?
Indeed, it absolutely is. I mean, you know, we, from a nutritional perspective, we need to be moving to move our food through the digestive tract. It's a big muscle, and you absolutely know your muscles, and you know that they've got to be exercised to keep them toned, to keep them healthy. And, you know, if you're sitting at a computer, and I think this is bringing this working from home, you know, have brought a lot of issues for people, you know, beneficial to a certain degree, but a lot of the time, you know, my partner's working from home, and he's stuck on these Zoom meetings for hours on end, you know, and he's just very conscious that he does move up and down the stairs, etc., when he's just on the phone and that. But, you know, if you're just sitting there for hours on end, you've had your lunch, you're sitting, you've gone back to your meetings, how is that food going to move through your digestive tract properly unless you're up and around moving effectively to move it through? And, you know, if you don't address that, it's over time going to lead to additional digestive issues, unfortunately.
Which, as we know, have ramifications for the whole body systems.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, there are two very key acupuncture points for the digestive system that lie within the sacroiliac joints. And so the sacroiliac joint movement, that is walking, going up and down stairs, will influence the digestive throughput. And so this, you know, the link between movement, older people in who become immobile and develop constipation, etc. You know, a lot of that is because of not moving. So yeah, it all is so very intertwined. You know, but clearly I you know, I have to stay within my scope of practice, and movement is my thing, and I know that's the same for you. So, well, you know what, I think we've had a thought-provoking conversation today, and I'd love to chat with you again. Thank you so much for your time, Shirley. I know that you're busy, and we all want to get away from these screens. So
indeed, absolutely. No, I've really enjoyed it, Philippa. Thanks very much for inviting me, and we'll speak again.
Yeah, thank you.